All right, what's everybody? Running a couple minutes late here, but it's Ryan Payne for my mentoring session with you guys this month. And just to refresh your memory, I'm Ryan Payne. I run a wealth management firm out of New York City called Payne Capital Management, and I'm happy to ask any questions on building a business from scratch, which I did with my firm, and anything that has to do with just like investing, anything to do with the financial markets. I'm happy to answer those questions as well. And we got some great questions today, so we're going to hop to it. We're going to have some fun today. You can feel the excitement building, and I'm going to get right into it. So let's talk. So the first question comes in from Marlena Carter, and she writes in, what are some things to do in order to prepare a sale of my business? And excuse me for a minute. Get some cobwebs in the voice there. So
Ryan, I have great news.
Marlena's business,
about the millennials moving back in with their baby boomers.
and hang on one moment.
Sofa.
Here we go. Sorry about that. I just had other things going off on my computer. So let's get right into that. So Marlena's business is dog grooming saloon in operation for 8 years. Are there things to do that will increase value and expedite the process? Even the thought of determining the value is a challenging concept for me. Elevator pitch, I've decided to wait until I finish the branding process. So I like your thinking, Marlena, because I think, invariably when you're building your business for scale, and there's a great book out there called Built to Sell. I can't remember who wrote it, but it just talks about when you build your business, you should build it always to sell. So I think that's a really, really smart concept. And I like the fact that you still could be 8 years away, but the things you do today and the infrastructure you build today can have a huge, huge impact on your ability to sell it later. And, I went through the same transition in my business. I went from the proverbial working in my business to working on my business, probably about 8 years ago. And actually I read that book and it kind of spurred the thought of building a business that was very scalable, that could be sold and, sold for a higher multiple because of the way it was positioned. So I think what you want to start to think about right now, and this is kind of maybe an obvious thing, but I think it's something we all need to think about with our businesses, is can my business run without me? Now, it's a tough question to answer because invariably a lot of times our ego gets caught up in our business. And I find this with a lot of smaller businesses. There's this whole thing about like, if you don't do it yourself, it never gets done right. So you end up being very enmeshed in doing a lot of the menial tasks of your business that could be delegated. But because if you delegate it realistically, someone who's going to do it probably won't do it as well with you because you've probably been doing it so long, you probably do it better than they do it. And your ego plays into this as well. And I'm speaking strictly from experience. Like my ego's got in the way of so many things that probably could have been done way, way better had I let my ego kind of, go by the wayside. And I think that's really, really important to think about is like how important it is if I get involved with lots of my, let's say, client complaints that maybe an advisor is dealing with as opposed to making them deal with it and making it their responsibility because I'm relinquishing control, which is a scary thing. It means that, I'm not as important if I don't get into a lot of these issues. And I think it's something that a lot of business owners struggle with. But, what's happening is you're really looking at things from the perception of scarcity as opposed to abundance. And when you're abundant, I think, it's a good thing to train other people. It's a good thing to delegate. And it's a good thing to get yourself out of the machinations of what's going on in the business every single day. So I think what you have to really look at is how do you build processes? And it is about building processes. If I'm outside the business and I go away to Europe for a month or something like that, how is my business going to run? And if the answer is today, like there's no way it can run without me, then, I would urge you to make a list. Start looking at all the things that if you were to go away, what would you have to delegate out? And a lot of times you might find this too. And I found this many times in my career, right before a big trip. You know how you would like clean up everything, like clean out your inbox, maybe that pile of paper that was behind your desk, you just got inspired and you just like cleaned house, got so organized because you're going to be out of Dodge. Maybe you delegated things out to other employees in your business if you have an admin person, and you were kind of just forced to delegate. And then lo and behold, when you got back from your vacation, because you were so organized before you went, things actually ran really smoothly. And a lot of things that you probably did for years all of a sudden that you delegated, you no longer did anymore because you went on that trip. And, I think that's kind of the viewpoint that you want to start to look at these things, is what kind of processes can be built. Now, I have an experience like this too. Earlier in my career, I used to play in a lot of bands and things like that, and I got an opportunity to play a whole tour in Eastern Europe. I was going to be out of the office for 3 months, which I've never done anything like that before. And this is before remote was a thing. Like, nobody was working remotely the way they are 10, 12 years ago. I can't remember exactly what year it was. It was kind of a weird thing to be like actually working from somewhere else remotely, like we're now doing because of the pandemic. Like, it's very commonplace. And I would literally be in places where, like, sometimes the cell reception wasn't great. I really couldn't do the daily grind of my business because I was traveling so much and I was in a different country. But it forced me to do so many things differently. And shocking enough, after 3 months, my business ran maybe even smoother than when I was in the office, and got rid of so many things that I didn't like doing because I was forced into that situation. So I think everyone should do this with their business. And Marlena, I think for you specifically, and hopefully I'm not butchering your name too much, I think that's exactly what I would do. I'd look at, like, how can my business run without me? Because invariably, and this is a great rule of thumb, and I think it's actually in that book, Built to Sell, the closer you are to knowing who your customers are, and the closer you are to knowing basically, what little issues are going on in your business, the less saleable your business is. Because think about that. If you sold your business and everyone's is used to dealing with you and you're not there anymore, well, that sucks for the new owners. You're not giving them something that's just essentially turnkey. Whereas the further removed you are from who your clients are, the less you know who your actual clients are. And it sounds kind of crazy, but the more saleable your business is. And think about that like on a macro scale. Always think of Starbucks. Think of Starbucks like, the CEO of Starbucks, or Howard Schultz, who started Starbucks. Like, he doesn't know who you and I are. He wasn't in there helping with the coffee. He had a whole system in place. And, I think that's the key here. And that's what you want to start to do. Is I think it's never too early to start to prepare your business to sell. And it all starts with processes. And that's what you have to ask yourself. Like, do I have a business right now that I work in, or the proverbial business I work on? And all of us are guilty of this. And it's a work in progress, because as your business changes and grows, yet at one point you might have been working on your business, killing it. Then there's things that are going to suck you back into your business. They're going to make you have to go back into the inner workings, which is fine. But you've got to constantly, fight that battle to make sure that you're getting out and looking over your business, or down on your business, as opposed to like in the weeds, dealing with a lot of stuff that you don't want to be dealing with. You don't have to be dealing with if you're smart about your processes. So it's all about processes, and I think that's an awesome question. I think it's when we can all value, get a lot of value from. Me personally, I always think about it too. Like, okay, what can I do now to automate my business more and make it even more saleable? So great question. And, hopefully everyone got a lot of value out of that. Next question comes in from Benjamin Mira. And Benjamin writes in, for a bookkeeping practice, should I hire a salesperson, do more advertising, or both? And let's get a description here, background. We're a digital bookkeeping and CFO business that wants to double our revenue as fast as possible by signing up new monthly clients. And the elevator pitch here for Benjamin is, at Speakeasy Bookkeeping, we help business owners get more organized, keep more money, and attain more freedom by providing world-class bookkeeping and CFO services. We're the most trusted bookkeeping and CFO name in the fiat and crypto game. Very interesting. It's a hot market. We even offer bookkeeping for our cryptocurrency investments. I think this is a really good question. Actually, there's a company here in New York that I know really well that does bookkeeping, outsourced CFO services. And the nice thing about your markets, from what I know about it, is there's not a lot of people that do marketing. They tend to be like the kind of businesses where you can probably exploit the fact that there's not a lot of marketing going on. I would look at both, and I would look at like anything, because I feel like you have a very niche business. And I think some sort of online advertising could actually work really, really well here, where you actually, maybe do some search engine optimization, or maybe you have some ads targeted at because it sounds like you have a very niche type of business, like you're working with a lot of crypto businesses. So I feel like there is an advertising campaign around this that could work really, really well, and build a funnel that way, and maybe partner with, hire someone who's just really, really good on the internet marketing side. But I feel like that would be a good place to start, just because there are things here you can do that are even more narrow and more niche than someone like me who's in wealth management, right? Wealth management's very broad. Now I can go more niche with mine too. I could say I'm a wealth manager for dentists or something like that. And there's actually a really good financial advisory practice, almost lost that there, in the Midwest that does just that. This guy, he just works around dentists, and he's very niche in his marketing and does very, very well that way. So I think if you could look at some of those advertising techniques and be very niche on who you're going to provide to, like, maybe go to every crypto business, get on some sort of, Instagram type of advertisement, maybe some sort of email campaign that basically says you're the bookkeeper for crypto businesses or something like that. That could be good low-hanging fruit. Now, the question becomes, let's say it's successful and you have a lot of inbound leads coming in. That's probably where you need a salesperson. And I don't know, that might be you at this point too, because I don't really know, how big your business is and how much time you have. But, you might be the person who does those sales calls initially, because I think you have to learn too what the sales process would look like before you hire a salesperson. So if you build this funnel, and one place I talk about this a lot when I do these calls is I have a radio show. And the cool thing about the radio show is, and actually it's tweaked now too as I'm talking about this, is there's a whole sales process involved that I'm not involved in. So basically, like, I do a radio show on the weekend. I have a call to action that says, like, if you want a free financial review and you call right now, you literally call into a voicemail, a salesperson calls you back and tries to basically set up an appointment. Now, that's all well and good now, and I'm completely out of that sales process. But initially, back in the day, I literally did everything myself. I did the radio show. I would literally call everyone back. Like, this would be my whole Saturday, try to convince people to come in for a review, and then do the review process. And this is because I didn't have the staff. I didn't have the money to afford a staff at that time. But I learned the process cold. So then when I finally had a salesperson, I could teach them the process and teach them how to do it from what I learned. So I suspect initially you just want to figure out the advertising campaign and, again, get into the mud here a little bit. Learn everything and do it yourself to learn those processes. And it just goes back to, like, the first question, building a process that actually takes you out of the equation eventually, where, again, it operates without you, which, again, makes your business more saleable. But I think you need to create that process first. I think that's very, very critical. So I would start with the marketing side, start with trying to generate some leads. And then when you have those leads, work on the sales process from there. And then you can hire somebody else to do the sales process that you've created. So I think that's probably a good, like, blueprint for what I would do there. And if you have any questions, you can obviously, in this video comment section, feel free to ask me any questions there, and I can rap with you about it offline or something like that. But excellent questions today, by the way. All right, next question comes in from Gabrielle Suarez. She writes in, looking for suggestions or advice on sourcing non-traditional or non-SBA financing options for my franchisees, loans anywhere from 75 to 150K. Business description, background question. Because of my franchise model includes the sale of CBD oil, most traditional lenders such as major banks or the SBA will not offer financing to our franchisees. I need help finding alternative financing solutions to our franchisees, even to lead to someone very experienced in this field that may be able to help me is appreciated. Sean, please forward this to all mentors that you think could help. I guess that's me. I am an elevator pitch here for Gabrielle. I'm sorry. I totally butchered that. I am the founder of Natural Life Stores, franchise company offering brick and mortar franchise opportunities. Natural Life is a chain of retail wellness and health stores specializing in all natural products. I think there are banks, and again, if you hit me up here in the comments section, or you can just send me a PM, private message or whatever, some banks that are just within certain states will provide financing for weed businesses, or cannabis businesses, probably the more like appropriate, more professional way to say that. And the ones, I know there's ones in, I don't know where you're located, so I have to find that out, but I could probably help you look into that a little bit further. I have a couple of friends that have cannabis businesses, and I know there's special banks that you can use that are sometimes just within a state. They don't cross state lines, where you can do your banking, and I would assume you could get some sort of loans as well. So if you hit me up offline there, I can see if there's any resources that I can provide for you to find out how you can get financing. But I know it's being done. But I think it's like very specific banks that can offer that kind of financing. So again, shoot me a note. I'll see if I can hook you up with my Rolodex and find somebody that can help you out with that. So, got to finance that weed business. It's important. Okay, next question comes in from Lindsay Lannon. I hope I didn't butcher your name as well. Question is, what are the best credit cards to get for a business bank account? I own a chocolates company, and I want to know more about setting up an account for my business. There are a lot of options, and I was curious to what the best path was to take. I sell chocolates with ingredients collected from direct trade farms and sustainably sourced packaging. Okay, this is a good question. For credit cards, we use the American Express Gold Card, I believe, which is actually a pretty good card. I mean, we're pretty happy with it. So that's one you can look at. I mean, I think you definitely want to set up a business account. So I don't know how big or small your business is, Lindsay, but even if it's like a DBA, doing business as, and running your expenses through that account, as opposed to a lot of people, and I don't really agree with this. So like, if you're a small operator, a lot of times you'll like use one credit card for personal and business, and the accountant basically weeds through the expenses and says, this is business, this is personal. I think you should keep it professional from the beginning. Set up a separate account, doing business as, even if you don't have a tax ID number for the business, just your social security, whatever, and running those business expenses exclusively through that. And again, I recommend looking at American Express. The points system is pretty good there. I know Chase for my personal is a pretty good card as well. So I would look into those two cards. That Chase Sapphire card, I believe I have, has pretty good points options as well, but we still use the American Express for the business with points. So I think you should definitely look into that, and I think you should definitely set up that business account 100%. You want to make it as professional as possible from the beginning and start to discern between those expenses. Use your business card when you're doing business as, in your case, your chocolates business, and your personal expenses over here. I think that's a really smart move. And I'll even put in the section here exactly what card I have. And I probably haven't shopped it in a while, so I should probably look as well. But definitely a card with points, obviously. And I think that American Express Gold, we've liked it. So I'll get more information on that for you. Okay, cool. All right. And we've got one more question. Oh, no, two more. Lindsay has a second question. So let's talk about that. Do you invest in your business, buy a house, or work towards paying off loans first? Or can you do a combination of both? What is the best way to utilize the money I've set aside? This is an excellent question. Now, when you start talking about loans, right, we're talking about the liability category on our balance sheet versus assets. And, I think it's important to discern between what I would call good debt and bad debt. And a lot of times, you've probably been brainwashed to believe debt is bad, pay off my debt, and basically, wait for your debt to be paid off. And in some cases, that's true, but it depends on the kind of debt you're talking about. So, and you're really the determinant of good and bad debt. Like a very simple explanation would be any sort of credit card debt is probably bad debt. And the reason it's bad debt is because the interest rate's probably exorbitant, right? It could be 10%, 15%. And what you want to ask yourself is, if let's just say you had this debt outstanding at a 15% loan rate that you're borrowing at, which is just astronomical, and you think, well, I want to put this money back in my business that you just had come in or pay off my loan. Well, the question you have to ask yourself is, am I going to be able to do better than 15% on my money in my business over the next year? And I would say odds are, unless your business is so fast paced right now where it's just growing like 30, 40% lights out, in that case, you could make an argument for not paying off that credit card debt and putting that money back in your business if you're going to get that kind of return on it. But odds are that's a high return. And for most of us, it's probably hard to do that. So if you have a really high interest rate on that debt, my thoughts would be to pay that sucker off as quick as possible, unless you're like in ultra growth mode, which some businesses may be. My business grows about 15% a year, so it's almost like a wash, right? Now, what if you, on the other side of the equation here, you've got like really low loan rates. Like you got, like I remember when I started my business, I had like a 1%, 2% borrowing rate on a credit card on a longer term loan. I forget, it was like 2-year term or something like that. Well, I might not be as anxious to pay that off. You know, if you think your business is going to do better than 2% this year in growth, it might be better return on capital to actually reinvest that money back. That I would call as good debt, you know, utilizing that debt. And the same thing with your personal balance sheet as well, by the way. Like, you know, a lot of clients that I have ask me, should I refinance my mortgage or should I pay it off? Well, if you can borrow money from the bank at 2.9%, and some of that can be deducted as well, depending on taxes and things like that, and depending on your current situation, what you have to ask yourself then is, well, can my money get a better return somewhere else? And the odds are probably yes. I bet you could invest your money, whether in your business, a diversified portfolio could probably do better than like less than 3% a year. And that's the case, then you don't want to rush to pay that debt off unless you're just so risk averse, you hate liabilities and pay it off. But this is basically how banks make money. They make money on what you call spreads. So think about this. You put money into a bank account, your checking account, savings account. Your bank pays you like 0.2% interest, like thanks a lot. So what's the bank doing with that money? They're going out and lending that money at a much better rate, maybe 4%, 5%, and they make money on that spread or that arbitrage, okay? So you've got to look at yourself and your business as like the Bank of You Incorporated. And it just comes down to, again, what rate am I borrowing at? And if I took the money and didn't pay off the debt, can I get a better return? Or the odds high that I can get a better return on that money than paying off that loan? So I think that's your answer there. I think that's what you want to look at. And, you know, it might be a combination of things. It might be like if it is a low rate, but that low rate expires in 2 years or a year, then you may want to amortize it and slowly pay down the principal as well. Because after the year, if the rate goes up, well, then, you know, you're at a position then where, well, man, maybe you should have paid some of that loan off as well. So that's where it can be more of not an all or none proposition, maybe some. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to borrowing rate. And that's the decision you want to make, is based on the borrowing rate, opportunities cost of paying down that debt versus investing that money, whether in your business or in real estate or a liquid portfolio. So I think you get the gist of it, but that's essentially what you want to look at. Good debt, bad debt, the interest rate determines that. Okay. And one more question as we cruise along here. So Gabor, Rack, I always butcher your last name, brother. I think it's pronounced race, but one of these days I'll get it right. But good to hear from you, Gabor. And you write in, how do I keep track of what everyone's doing in a growing team? Okay, let's give a little background here. Not long ago, our company consisted of my parents and I plus a secretary. We now have 3 full-time and 4 part-time employees doing packaging and admin, 3 to 5 contractors working on marketing, and many more in content production. Some work in our office, others are remote. One of the employees works as a manager of the admins and reports to me, while I directly manage everyone who works on marketing. I'm getting very stressed because I feel like I'm losing track of what everyone should be doing. When I finally sit down to do my own job, I'm worried I've got all these people on payroll and I'm not sure whether they're getting work done. How do I make sure my employees are productive and getting the right work done without micromanaging them and constantly looking over their shoulders? Okay. This is good. This is definitely a growing pains problem. And, you know, the thing about this is as you grow, it goes back to, again, building your business to sell. It's virtually impossible for you to be on top of everyone. Okay. So what I like about what Gabor's done here is he actually has an employee who manages your admin team. Now, I do the same thing in my business because our business got to a point where it got much bigger. We had way more people and things were falling through the cracks. And, you know, what I find is I'm not a micromanager by nature. I like to delegate and I like not to get involved in a lot of the minutia of the day-to-day stuff. But we got to a point where no matter what I said to the admin team, no matter how many times I asked them to restructure what they're doing, it just didn't work. And, you know, I think in your business, like any business, you find out when a client complains, right? Something doesn't get followed up on or an order is not sent, depending on your business. And to me, that's the ultimate litmus test. You're gonna hear from it. If things aren't going right, you're gonna hear from a client or something like that. But if you're not hearing those things, it's odds are things are going smoothly. Now, what's important here, what I did is I got an operations woman who was just so organized, better manager than I could ever possibly be. Because that's the other question you have to ask yourself. Sounds like you don't want to really be involved with the management side of things. I'm guessing. I hate being involved in managing the people side. I think it's just not my skill set. But getting somebody who's really good that you trust, and by trusting them and knowing that they have the ability to make people accountable, you should be able to have them report to you directly without you having to go and find out what the people that person is managing or doing are doing. Okay, so it really comes down to the trust of that operations or management person you put in place to know that they're on their stuff. I don't lose sleep overnight over how organized our team is because I've got someone who's so good at it, and she reports to me every quarter, and we go through what's going on, lets me know what's going on. So maybe a formalized meeting with that manager, if you feel they're good, you're confident in their abilities, and make sure that they have their own metrics. I know she meets with our operations team weekly, and she has metrics in place. So it doesn't mean you have to do it, but make sure that that person has those metrics in place. And then, again, have them report to you on a quarterly basis, monthly basis, whatever you're comfortable with, to make sure things are running smoothly. So I think it's really about trusting the person who's managing the people as opposed to trusting all those people. Because that person managing those people is going to tell you, so-and-so isn't doing their job. So-and-so needs to pick it up, or this is the issue we're having. And you'll know. I'll give you an example right now. I just mentioned the radio show. And, we have a sales process that I don't think's working as well as it used to because we switched it up. We have, let's say we just have people that are maybe unseasoned answering a lot of the phones, doing the sales calls. And now we're not getting as many leads on the calendar because I think these people aren't trained well enough. And I see the end product is not performing where it should be. So that's my red flag. So now I'm going to go back to my operations person and say, hey, I know we put this in place, but I don't see the results coming in. Let's look at it. So that's a much more high-level conversation. You're dealing with one person, and you have one person you trust and have confidence in that's going to go back and fix the machinery because the results aren't what you're expected. So I think you need to keep focusing on the results side of things and making sure that you have someone who's managing, again, those people. Now, mine's kind of a hybrid. I don't deal with any of the operational stuff, but I do handle our financial advisors personally. I meet with them quarterly. I look at their numbers and metrics, and that's my responsibility. So if you're going to manage anybody, you've got to decide who you're actually going to manage, and that's your responsibility. Anything outside of that is that other person's responsibility that you've anointed in your firm to take care of it, and you should only be meeting with them. So I think that's the bottom line there. So delegation is key here. Remember, keeping our ego out of it. And I think trust is a big part of this as well. You've got to have good operations people. My business would not run the way it does today had I not had a fantastic operations person. I don't think you should skimp on the operations person. They got to be someone who's better at it than you, that you trust, and again, has a process in place. You don't have to invent all these things. You can delegate these things as long as you trust that person and you trust their ability to put processes in place that are going to work. So I think that's what you got to do there, and I think that's a great sign because, again, I think these are growing pain problems, and that's where you want to be. These are the problems you want to have. So congratulations on that, by the way, that your business is growing, that you have all these people. Now, that's the other joke I always make. People are like, how many people do you have now? And, you say some number and wow, that's impressive. And I'm thinking that's just more headaches, man. It's just more headaches. Mo people, mo problems. So it has to be managed. And you've got to have the right people in place. So I think that's pretty much it for questions. I'm just going to scroll through to see if there's any other ones that are popping up. Anyone needs a question to ask, here's your time to do it before I end this mentoring session. But I think all good here, all good. Okay, yeah, so I think that's it. I think that sums it up. Good session today. And again, I think one of the themes today that is a good reminder for me and hopefully a good reminder for all of you is just build your business to sell. And I think this comes up on almost every single one of these video conferences that we do is, systems are so critical. And a reminder for me too, it's just like the way you build your business is like everything. It's got to have the right foundation. And if you don't have the right foundation, you've got to go back and you've got to tweak it. You really do. It just makes all the difference. And, the way you structure your business and you structure your business to be saleable, to be scalable, and keeping you out of those day-to-day processes, that's called leverage. And that's where you can really soar. So I want everyone thinking about those things. If you're watching this or when you finish watching this, and definitely reflect on that. That's good for all of us. Me too. I'm going to do the same thing because it really is about, not just, it's like kind of like lifestyle design, right? You want to design the best business you can for your life and for your goals. And that all is intertwined with your life. So it's really more of a life goal to design your business a certain way. And it pays to take the time to sit down and, take an hour on Friday or, pick a day where you can just like sit there and contemplate and design exactly what your business should look like, and then make a list of all the things that need to be fixed, and then chunk it down. Maybe every week you work on one thing and you address that one issue. And then the next week you address another issue, and these things build and compound on themselves. And then all of a sudden you're really leveraging your business and you're really working on your business. I'm saying this right now, I'm getting inspired. Like, I'm going to do this, because it is that powerful. So I'll leave you with that. We'll do one more in December. Appreciate all of you. Hope everyone's having a strong end of the year. And, stay loose, keep an open mind, and we'll take it from there. Thanks.